In today's video lesson, I shall be continuing with the explanation of the chapter The Enemy by Pearl S. Buck. Children, so far we had read that the couple, Hannah and Sadao, they had spotted a man approaching their house. Nothing was clear because it was very foggy and there was a mist too. But then they could faintly make out that there was a man who was approaching their house and he suddenly had collapsed. When they went closer to him, they realized that he was badly injured. Now let's read what happens next. There is something about him that looks American, Sadao said. He took up the battered cap. Yes, there, almost gone, was the faint lettering. A sailor, he said, from an American warship. He spelled it out, US Navy. The man was a prisoner of war. Now, when they had taken a closer look at the man who had collapsed on the beach, something was hinting at the fact that he was an American. His appearance, his looks. And when Sadao looked at the ruined cap, in very faint words it was written, a sailor belonging to the US Navy of an American warship. And they exclaimed, Sadao exclaimed that the man was a prisoner of war. He had been captured in the war by the Japanese army. He has escaped, Hannah cried softly. Now, being a prisoner of war, he must have escaped from the Japanese army, and while he was fleeing, a bullet must have been shot at him. In the back, Sadao agreed. Yes, you are right. He's saying that this could be the possibility. They hesitated, looking at each other. Then Hannah said with resolution, Come, are we able to put him back into the sea? Now, Hannah and Sadao, they both were reluctant because that man lying in front of them, he was their enemy. So Hannah asked that are we able to put him back into the sea? So shall we throw him back into the sea? If I am able, are you? Sadao asked. Now Sadao also posed the same question. If I am able to do it, will you be able to do it? Can we turn away this man, a prisoner, simply like this, back into the sea? This was a very tough question they both were battling with. Let's move on to the next slide, children. No, Hannah said, but if you can do it alone. He said that, see, I don't know. I won't be able to help you out in this. You have to do it all alone. Sadao hesitated again. The strange thing is, he said, that if the man were whole, I could turn him over to the police without difficulty. I care nothing from him. He is my enemy. All Americans are my enemy. And he is only a common fellow. You see how foolish his face is? But since he is wounded, and here, he has no answer. He has no further explanation to give. He's saying that the problem is that he is in a very bad shape. He has sustained some serious injuries and I just cannot leave him like this. My inner conscience is not allowing me. Had he been perfectly fine, had he been a man, the man were a whole, means had he not sustained any bullet mark, then it wouldn't have been difficult for me to hand him over to the police. And I care nothing for him because he is an American and all Americans are my enemy. He is just an ordinary fellow. And see how simple, how foolish he looks. But since he is wounded, I don't know what to do. I really cannot understand how to react to this situation. You also cannot throw him back to the sea, Hannah said. And he said that you cannot throw him back into the sea this way. Then there is only one thing to do. We must carry him into the house. So the husband and the wife they mutually agreed on this, that they must carry the wounded prisoner into their house. The next question that came to their mind: "But the servants?" Sadao inquired. Then what answer would we give to the servants? This was another very important question that came to Sadao's mind. "We must simply tell them that we intend to give him to the police." "As indeed we must, Sadao. We must think of the children and your position. It would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over as a prisoner of war." So here the wife is giving an explanation that we must simply tell them that we don't intend to save his life. In fact, we are planning to hand him over to the police because he is an American and our enemy. We must think of the children. We cannot endanger the life of our children. Neither can we risk your position. We cannot risk your position. It would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over as a prisoner of war. So sooner or later, we have to hand him over as a prisoner of war to the authorities. We cannot endanger our life. "Certainly," Sadao agreed. "I would not think of doing anything else." So what is the husband saying? What is Sadao saying? That, of course, this is what I have also thought of. I cannot think of anything else. This is only the course of action that I too would take up. Thus agreed, together they lifted the man. He was very light, like a fowl that had been half starved for a long time until it is only feathers and skeleton. So they mutually agreed upon it, and they lifted the man, carried him into their house. He was very light, like a fowl. Fowl is a bird, children. Half starved. That had been half starved for a very long time until it is only feathers and skeleton. So you can understand the comparison drawn here with that for bird. So he was starved. He was like a fowl, weightless. So his arms hanging, they carried him up the steps and into the side door of the house. So they carefully carried him up, and his hands and arms, they were hanging limp. They were all limp, children. And they carried him into the house from the side door. Secretly, they took him inside. This door opened into a passage, and down the passage they carried the man towards an empty bedroom, and quietly, without anybody noticing, they could quietly carry the man inside an empty bedroom. It had been the bedroom of Sadao's father, and since his death it had not been used. It belonged to Sadao's father, and since his death it was lying vacant. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. Everything here had been Japanese to please the old man, who had never in his own home sit on a chair or sleep in a foreign bed. So children, the father, as we already know, was deeply rooted in his custom and his tradition. He had never slept in a foreign bed, nor had he ever sat on a chair. And here the couple carried the American into that very room. Hannah went to the wall cupboards and slid back a door and took out a soft quilt. She hesitated. The quilt was covered with flowered silk, and the lining was pure white silk. So it was an expensive quilt. Hannah, initially, she was reluctant in giving this to the prisoner, but then she covered him with that pure white silk so that he could be warm. Also, children, he was a prisoner of war and he was badly injured. He was so weak. He had to be kept warm. So if they had decided to take care of him and bring him home, this hospitality they did show to the prisoner. "He is so dirty," she murmured in distress. Now, because the prisoner of war, he was picked up from the shore, the blood oozing out from his wound, and the sand, it was all over his clothes, his body. What had happened? The white silk, the quilt that was given by Hannah, it too had become dirty. And she murmured in distress, irritated, troubled, that he's so dirty. Yes, he had better be washed, Sadao agreed. Now Sadao said that we should wash him. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. I cannot bear for you to touch him, she said. We shall have to tell the servants he is here. Now the wife said that I cannot bear this, that you will touch such a dirty man. I think we must tell the servants that he is here. Let them do the cleaning. I will tell Yumi now. She can leave the children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Now Yumi was the nanny who used to take care of the children. So Hannah said that I will tell Yumi to clean him up. Sadao considered a moment. Let it be so, he agreed. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. So finally, they decided that they will let the servants know that an American prisoner of war was there with them inside the house in such a wounded state. So it was the duty of Hannah to inform Yumi, and Sadao would inform the gardener and the cook. Children, I will end my explanation here. We shall continue with the lesson in the next class. Thank you.